With the 16th pick in the NBA draft, the Sixers select. Would it be crazy if they selected Bronny James? Huh?
Nope.
Huh?
I don't think it would be crazy.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 76ers. We want to thank you for listening to Locked On 76ers every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So, Mitch said it doesn't really, it's not a bad thing, I guess, to draft Bronny James with the 16th overall pick. That will ensure to make sure that you get LeBron, hopefully. Second, so we'll talk about that in the first segment. In the second segment, we'll talk about De'Anthony Melton. Is it stay or go? Should the 76ers keep D Melt, or should they let him walk in free agency? And then the third segment, we'll just talk about some tidbits, things that come to mind. But Mitch, Bronny James, I'm here in Chicago. Bronny James is going to speak to the media today. You know, I believe he's going to be the main attraction. Everybody and their mom is going to want to talk to him. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the 76ers possibly drafting him? Now, again, Bronny James isn't on anybody's board, really. Now, his stock is rising here, but he's not really on anybody's board. So you're basically essentially using that pick for the hope of luring LeBron James to the 76ers.
Yeah, it's an interesting proposition, Keith. You know, if you can, I mean, that's something you do if and only if, the behind the scenes conversations have taken place and you know that he's going to come. Now, I know, because it's LeBron James, anything he says is going to resonate. LeBron is like, I want to play with my son. And can you blame him? I mean, he's had this incredible legacy, arguably the best player in the history of the NBA. I side with MJ. But he's on your Mount Rushmore.
You said the side of MJ, right?
Yeah, well, he's behind MJ.
Yeah.
He's behind. I'm not yet. He's lost to his. Wherever he goes, they go to the title in his prime. But he's got too many L's. He's taking too many L's in the finals for me. But
too many first round exits too now.
Yeah. But he's still LeBron, and if you can if that's your third guy, and then somehow you can get. I mean, come on, man. You can take how many you can look at the first round of the NBA draft over the years and just take a match to people who've been taken at 16. Hell, here in Philadelphia, you can take a match to the people we've taken at number 1. So if there's that possibility, that very real possibility, is it frivolous and careless to say, and is it not business savvy to take a number 1 pick and a first round pick in the hopes that a guy you may add a guy who could, even at 39, it'll be 40 next year. LeBron's an Iron Man. I mean, and the numbers he put up, that situation was just very dysfunctional. D'Angelo Russell was eating a hot dog or a hamburger, whatever he was on he pulled a Rod Strickland, man, sitting courtside in the playoff game. So if it's possible, but it has to be, you have to have those conversations that the NBA declares illegal and have them and find out, is this enough for you to opt out of that contract? Because, Los Angeles, Philly, it's like, I think things have run its course as far as championships, and if he really wants to win a championship, he has to be looking at Joel Embiid as a potential teammate.
Yeah, I'm a little torn because I think it's weird because we talk about player empowerment. That's the major player empowerment move. Like, look, y'all, if y'all want me, you got to come get my kid. But then also, I'm wondering from the standpoint, how did your kid feel about it? Like, it's great. Like, I get granted, everybody wants to play with their pop. You want to be in the league. But at the same time, you want to get there on your own laurels. Like, you know what I mean? You want to be able to say, like, this is my resume, my body of work that enabled me to be the 16th pick. Right now, everybody will look at him as if he's a G leaguer playing for the Sixers who got the number 16 pick, got paid because of his pop. So that's a tough situation, in my opinion, to be a part of, right? In my opinion, that's a tough situation to be a part of. However, at the same time, I do have to look at it from the standpoint of LeBron James, like you said, as a third option. I think that he would be the best option that the Sixers have out there, even at the age of 39. Just because, he can run the point forward position from you, right? Then you can have Maxey playing off the ball a little bit, cutting
on or off.
Yeah, right, on and off, right. I think that you got a guy like LeBron, who's a guy who, let's face it, one of the few guys who Embiid will like got the utmost respect for it. And we're like, LeBron said, yo, we coming in early. Well, we coming in early. We staying late.
Can't put a price on that.
Yeah, you can't put a price on it. So, I mean, I think that if you do that, him and then having Maxey there and having Embiid, and I think that will help both of those guys to keep, like, it will help Embiid, it will help LeBron to stay healthy and stay refreshed leading up into the playoffs. And I look at that team, that big three, and you say, let's say them compared to Boston's big three of Brown, Tatum, and what's his name?
I put Drew in there. I put Drew in there before I put the
really? Well, then let's put Drew in there. Well, I like what I have in
Philly.
LeBron, Embiid, and Maxey. Now, again, Drew might get in the defensive thing, but I kind of like that. I like it. You know what I mean? Now, if it was the center, if you put him in there, I definitely like what the Sixers have. You know what I mean? Now, again, the weak links, what you would have to say are not the weak link, but the lesser of the three would be Maxey and it would be Brown. And then the other one, it would be Drew and it would be Maxey, right? So, you know what I mean?
They actually have a big four up there.
Yeah, they do. They have a big four, but yeah, they have a big four. I mean, but the fourth guy is more of like a stellar utility player. You know what I'm saying? Like, what position? Are you a first base, second base, third base? Nah, I'm a utility player.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's who he is. That's who Drew is. So it works out. So that, but nah, I kind of like that. I like that. The only concern is you got to be 100% sure, and you got to see how the kid is going to deal with it. Like, again, they said he's been putting up good numbers, up here in Chicago, but we'll see, because I don't see him on any of the draft boards like that. I don't see him not like that.
And why because this isn't even about who the player Bronny James is. I mean, the player Bronny James was at USC was, a team that may have been in the top at the very end of the top 100 college teams in the country, who wasn't even starting, who averaged less than 5 points per game, shot 36% from the floor, 27% from the free throw line. He is like his father in that he can't shoot free throws. He was shooting 67% from the line. I hear he's very athletic, very bouncy, but I kind of, when he played Camden, when Bronny played Camden, it was like a few years back, and and DeJuan Wagner's boy kind of lit him up. You know, I was kind of like, okay, well, you can see that he's riding the hype of being LeBron James' son. But again, this is not about it's not about Bronny. This is about, you know, is he a chip in this? Yes, he's a chip, but is he the chip that will draw, you know, LeBron James potential to the Philadelphia 76ers? You know, and we'll talk about that a little bit more probably later on, and when we're talking about that a lot. But right now, what I want to talk to you is, you know, one of our sponsors, FanDuel. You know, it's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
Yeah, you know, the thing about FanDuel is to me is the best, and it's also one of the things where we keep saying, do it today, people. Definitely do it today. You know what I mean? But Mitch, let's talk about D-Melt, right? De'Anthony Melton. Here's a guy who, you know, when he was out there playing, the Sixers were balling in the beginning of the season. Yeah. Unfortunately, he had that back injury. He tried to come back 3 times. It was hard. He did come back on the 4th time, but at that point, he was so lost. Meaning lost. He lost so much time that he really wasn't impactful. Now, the thing is, before he was injured, he was one of the league's top guys in deflections, league leaders, one of the league leaders in steals. I mean, this guy was on his way to being an all-defensive first or second team type of selection. Seriously, he was. And then he missed all those games. Do you bring him back?
If you can, I'm a fan of D-Melt. You know, I know. I mean, number one, he's 25 years old. He's, you know, he had the back issues, but I'm of the mindset that he's young enough and that they're not chronic enough where he can come back and contribute the way he was contributing. Because, like you said, I mean, you know, watching him, he was the one guy at the start of the season who kind of struggled a little bit early on, if you recall. But once he found his rhythm, you know, the shots started falling, started making plays, and it became, you know, feasible to say, yeah, this guy can be a legitimate player. You know, can help the 76ers. I mean, he made $8 million last year, for 11 points per game, 3.7 boards, 3 assists, almost 2 steals per game. If there's one thing you know, we need a backup center. We do, but we also need. I mean, how badly did it hurt the 76ers to not have Covington and Melton playing perimeter defense this year? It was huge. You know, it was visible in the playoffs. You know, I mean, you go to the rebound and the inability to rebound the ball, but you immediately also go to having a guy like De'Anthony and you know, Robert Covington. I guess we throw him in the conversation. But if those guys are out there, you know, the looks around the perimeter and into the post for Brunson get a lot more difficult than they were. You know, the penetration to the rim for those little pop-up bunnies he was making become a lot more difficult. So, I mean, I'm a fan. I mean, you know, they've got a number of players that I'm a fan of. I'm obviously Kelly Oubre, but, you know, to sign Kelly, you have to dig into some of that cap space, which is precious. But yeah, I like De'Anthony Melton, man. You know, he's a bigger guard than what they threw out there. So, you know, I can rock with De'Anthony Melton coming back and bringing him under the right circumstances.
Yeah, you know what? I keep going back and forth, and I hate to keep going back and forth because I really like him, and I feel like he can be a great player. But as a person myself who has back issues and how I know they come and go, and I'm looking at Ben Simmons' career, and a lot of people want to talk about him not being able to play. People in Philly want to talk about him not being able to play at a high level anymore because of his fear for shooting, and he's no longer in the 76ers system. They feel like he got exposed when he went to Brooklyn. But the real reason why he hasn't been able to play at a high level is because of his back.
Yeah.
And if we remember, he had back issues as a 76er, which really cut his season short. It got to a point, if they wouldn't have went to the bubble that year, he wouldn't have been able to come back and play. Now, in the playoffs, he got another injury, and he wasn't able to play in the playoffs for the Sixers. But I look at how Ben Simmons' career has basically deteriorated because of these back injuries. Now I look at De'Anthony Melton, and I say to myself, okay, here's a guy, he does a lot. He's not on the level of Ben Simmons, not that type of impactful player, but he missed. We already talked about how many times he tried to come back this season.
Yeah.
Last season, he had back issues too. So this is the second year since he's been with the Sixers that he's had back issues. And he's only been with the Sixers 2 years, right? So he's had back issues both of those seasons. So to me, that's a concern. And it's like to a point where, I don't know, he's one of those players, you really want him to come back, but what type of contract are you going to give him? What type of protection are you going to give yourself, right? So to me, that's the only concern. Now, if he goes to the doctors and he does all this stuff, he said he's going to do some training and some exercises, weight training on his back. If you can do that and everything is deemed to be okay, then maybe I may give him a small deal, like a 2-year deal or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But or 1 year with a team option the second. Like, I know that's something that he doesn't want, but at the same time, I think that in order to get him, you got to have some type of protection. And I mean, just because of the back. And I hate saying that because a great dude, a great asset player for them this year. But that back thing scares me. All I keep thinking about is Ben Simmons, how he just dropped off the face of the earth.
And that's the back can do that, man. I mean, how many times, back in the old days when, I remember watching Larry Bird, and toward the end of his career, into his 30s, he couldn't sit down during timeouts. He had to lie flat on his stomach, because that was the only way he can bring comfort to his back. I'm sitting here looking at a quote from him, from De'Anthony Melton. He's saying, now I've got to gauge my options, gauge who I want to be, what I want to do, and everything like that. I feel like I've established myself in the league and understand what I can do and what I bring to the table. I think everybody knows that, and everybody does understand that. But, when evaluating a player and his availability, no other team in the NBA knows about the best availability, the best ability being availability better than the 76ers at this point.
And here's something else I'm going to say real quick that a lot of these players, Anthony also has to do, and maybe this factor in them saying that is, you got to realize, like last year, they told George Niang you could come back. They told a couple other players you could come back, but on minimums. No dudes weren't trying to get minimums. So if the Sixers are trying to give Tyrese Maxey although they have his bird rights and they can sign him later after they get everybody else, right? But if you're trying to go out and get an A-list guy, you're trying to do all this other stuff, and you're trying to give Maxey a max, well, do you think De'Anthony Melton is going to garner a lot of money with the Sixers? So when he says, I got to weigh my options, it's kind of like, well, I could get elsewhere. If my back checks out, I could probably get a whole lot more elsewhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And I do think he can get more elsewhere, Keith. And like you said, I've seen some people speculating that the 76ers might not go big game hunting. I don't think they're in a position to walk away from this offseason without getting one of these major players. I just don't think they're in a position, to do that. They've got to get You know, and it's not a matter of settling. I mean, because any of these guys that we talk about, you know, Siakam, OG, Jimmy Butler, LeBron James, Paul George, all these guys make them a much better team than the team that had it not meant, possibly not been for a few bad calls by the referees, would still be playing right now. And they're better. They bring back a better team if they go out into those waters. So, you know, again, you build for the better roster. And if that means that you can't fit De'Anthony Melton into your plans, then he doesn't fit. Would I like to see him come back? It all depends on what they do. You know, they because he's definitely, I mean, he's definitely a legitimate contributor. So right now, I want to talk about another one of our sponsors, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about Melton, maybe Kelly Oubre, and some of the other decisions they have to make when we get back. But what is PrizePicks? PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. You can now win up to 100 times your money. That's 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball and hockey. Today on PrizePicks, America's #1 sports app. So, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Do it today, folks. Definitely do it today.
You know something? I want to pivot for this third segment just because you said something. So there's a lot of people. You're right, is saying that the Sixers won't go big game hunting. But all we keep hearing about is at first it was Paul George, then it became maybe it's going to be a trade for maybe LeBron James, right? Mm-hmm. Then you hear is a trade for possibly a trade for Brandon Ingram. You know, all these things, all these different scenarios coming up. But I ask you, this free agent class, if you can't get LeBron James or if you can't get Paul George, mm-hmm. You could possibly get locked out.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the #1 asset, the #1 free agent right now is your own guy, Tyrese Maxey, who's restricted, who everybody in their mind, you'd be a fool to give throw money at Tyrese Maxey if you're another team, because you know the Sixers are going to match it and you're not going to get them, right? So you know you're not going to get them. So then you talk about it. Okay, you could go and hope and pray that OG doesn't like the situation he's at in New York and will say, instead of being the third fiddle in New York, I'd rather be the third fiddle in Philly, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what you think. But New York has its bird rights.
Yeah.
So then the same thing with Pascal Siakam. Well, then outside of that, the next 3 free agents, one was James Harden, the other one was DeMar DeRozan, who isn't a good fit.
Yeah.
And then the third one is Tobias.
Yeah. So
my thing is, you're saying to yourself, like, Dad, what are you going to do? Like, you got to go all for naught for Paul George. Now, and LeBron, now here's something else. We talk about making trades. So right now, Brandon Ingram is making $36 million, will make $36 million next year. Mm-hmm. In order for you to get him, you got to possibly do a sign and trade. Now, who are you going to trade? Are you going to trade Tobias? So you're going to give Tobias going to get $36 million. So do you think so Brandon Ingram is coming off the books. Now they getting rid of Brandon Ingram because they felt like he didn't live up to what his expectations. So you're going to give Tobias $36 million or whatever it is to make it work. And then if you're the Sixers, you know, you got to hope and pray that Brandon Ingram wants to stay here. It's going to be a place where maybe get an extension. He'll do some other things or whatever have you. So to me, all this stuff sounds good on paper. Then you also may have to get another team involved, possibly. But all this stuff sounds good in paper. But the fact that they don't have any assets, the asset that they had was James Harden. They got rid of him for some dudes who they traded for Buddy Hield, right? And those dudes probably wouldn't have got you the things that you wanted. And now, so like to me, the question is, Mitch, like, how many options do they really have?
Yeah, because they're waiting. They're in a situation where some of the guys they want have to opt out. It's not like guys are just sitting there, waiting to sign these $200 million. These $200 million contracts with the 76ers. So it's not as cut and dry as we'd like to think, and we know that we know that the Clippers have not ruled out making things worth Paul George. I don't know that they. I don't think they want to. Given was it $221 million. And they've gone through that. They've already given that money to Kawhi, so they kind of know that what they actually with all that money committed to players with Kawhi's help, they know what the ceiling is. And the Sixers, their conundrum is obviously we've got to get somebody here. We've got to get a third guy. Again, all our conversations, every single conversation we have, and every single conversation you have about the 76ers, all goes back to can Daryl Morey finally, at long last, pull a rabbit out of his hat, and make it happen. Because no matter what they do, people are going to be dissatisfied. If they sign Paul George, if they sign, if Jimmy Butler comes here, the first thing your Philadelphia fans are going to say, well, these guys are geriatrics, but. Again, you look at the guys who are ideal fits, the Pascal Siakams, the OG Ananobis, those guys might be comfortable where they are.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And that's the problem that they got to deal with. That's the thing. Like, it's a lot, man. It's not like, it's not like everyone says. It's not like as easy as people think. Even down to KD, like, you're going to get KD, but who you going to trade for? You don't have nobody on your roster.
Nobody.
Nobody you want. Like Embiid, maybe, but Embiid got an injury history. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's like you have nobody on your roster that you're willing to give up for him.
And he's the cornerstone. You're actually wanting, you want players. The one tradable asset that you have is the one guy you want to keep, even if he gives you 39 games a season. You want to bring people here to play alongside him and see if you might be able to complete the process.
Exactly, because see, Maxey and then Devin Booker is that they're like two. They're not. Nah, that's not going. That's going to be just like another
chemical. That's chemical problem.
That's another. Yeah, that's another whatchamacallit. What's the boy in Bradley Beal situation coming? You know what I mean? Like, come on, get over in the corner and don't get the ball, but be happy because you're getting paid. That ain't working. Yeah. But look, y'all, Locked On has launched the first ever, and I mean ever National Sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channel app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On Plus, our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channel app. So I would like to say thanks for listening, y'all. Expect y'all to hope y'all have a blessed day. We'll be back tomorrow to talk some more stuff, to pick John's brain, to see if he got some more knowledge and stuff like that in there. I know he does. I'm just messing.
I'm gonna try to generate something.
Yeah. Now, I'm gonna talk to a couple of those draft prospects today, and Bronny James is going to be one of the guys who's holding media availability today. So we'll see. So we'll have a lot to
be interesting.
We'll have a lot to talk about. All right. So for John and this is Keith. I want to say peace and thanks for listening today, y'all. Peace.
Have a great one, y'all.